Grace Folias with Modern Approach. So this is really exciting. A fellow Real team lead flying in from Florida, originally from New York. You lead a pretty large team down in Florida and New York. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your team dynamic down there and how you're able to lead remotely?
Yeah, so I have a team called Modern Approach, and it started in New York, and then I relocated down to Florida about 2 years ago, and then I expanded to a second state. So I switched to a virtual brokerage, which was able to help me just with fees and splits and be in two places at once. It was the best option, hands down, for me to be able to expand to a second state, and it made it such a seamless process to be able to manage both at the same time.
So what's your origin story? How did you start out in real estate?
So I started actually as a personal assistant for a broker. I did that for like 6 years. I was the marketing assistant at Keller Williams. And then I didn't want to get my real estate license. I didn't want to be like overworked and stressed. And I saw really successful agents, but they were also really overworked, and it just wasn't selling the idea to me. So I got into interior design, and then I got laid off during COVID. So because there was a hiring freeze and I didn't really have any other options, I was like, okay, I have a real estate background, so this is the time to try it. And I had a family to support, so I was like, I have to go all in, and I just didn't give myself an option to fail.
What attracted you to EXP originally, right? Is that where you went?
So I actually started at Keller Williams. I went there first because I was an assistant there. I knew a lot of the agents and brokers, and it felt familiar to me. They were also the best for training for new agents. You know, that was what I heard from everybody. Yeah. So I did get a really good foundation from them, and I learned a lot, but I felt like after 6 months I really capped my potential of what I could learn there. I felt like I learned a lot of the basics of the business, but when I got licensed, it was at a time where social media was just becoming popular and it was growing, and there was nobody there that could teach me how to get clients and how to promote myself in that way. So I just felt like I hit a ceiling really, really quickly. So after 6 months, that's when I left. I went to EXP.
And was EXP where you launched Modern Approach?
Yes.
Sweet. Okay. And that was up in New York?
Yep.
And Modern Approach is down in Florida as well?
Yeah, so most of my team is still in New York. I'm about 75% of the time I'm in Florida, but 75% of my business is still in New York. I just put systems in place, and I have my buyer's agents, showing agents. They help out with my listings and work the buyers from those in the open houses. So I've just figured out a way to make it work where I go back and forth here and there, but primarily I am in Florida now.
So how does being with a virtual brokerage help you manage teams remotely in two different states?
So it seems impossible to those agents that are at traditional brokerages because there's no systems in place for this to work. It's just not possible. So for me, now I'm with Real, and at Real, you know, there's one app and platform for everything. All of my documents are in there. All of my transactions are in there for me, for my team. And they're for both states. Like, I just log in, everything's in the same place. Both of my brokers are listed there. There's a call button to reach either one of them from the same app. So it's so streamlined, and I don't have to log into two different dashboards. I don't have to go to two separate places. Everything is in the same spot. Nothing changes for me on the back end. Like, it's all exactly the same. And then it's just, that's not possible at a brick and mortar office. You know, they don't have the technology to support it. And they also are not able to really match financially what a virtual brokerage is doing. You know, I'm in two states. I'm only paying one company one time.
So going from Keller Williams to EXP was a big change, I'm sure. But going from EXP to Real, and I guess most agents probably know that EXP and Real are very similar cloud brokerages. Everything is just in the cloud somewhere, or remotely. There's no brick and mortar. So going from EXP to Real, what was the biggest reason why you thought it was justified to lift and shift your team to Real Broker?
It was a difficult decision because they're structured similarly, and the same way EXP's model was actually really similar to Keller Williams in a lot of ways, where they had, you know, Keller Williams had profit sharing, EXP had revenue share, similar structure. So then EXP Real is kind of a similar structure to that, but it was a lot more favorable in terms of the agents and the amount of money that went back to the agents. So the cap was less, the splits were less. So off the bat, my agents were saving at least $4,000 a year, which, is a big difference. Yeah. And then there's no monthly fee. It was almost $100 a month at EXP, and that adds up, especially for new agents that aren't closing any deals. They're coming out of pocket every month and they're not making anything back. At Real also, you don't have to get a mentor. There's an option for it, but at EXP, brand new agents had to pay 20% for a mentor for their first 3 transactions. Mm-hmm. So it was a 20% split plus 20% mentor fee. So off the bat for 3 deals, they're already paying 40% to the company, which kind of defeated the purpose of going to an 80-20. So at Real, they can opt in for a mentor. It's not required. You're not forced to do it, and you can opt in or out of that at any time. So it sits well with the new agents that are like, okay, at least I have the option to choose and see like how much hand-holding I need or join a team instead. There was just a little more flexibility with things like that. And the biggest difference was also the culture. I feel like virtual brokerages in general took a lot of the competition out between agents because the trainings are not just held by the top agents in your market center. It's agents in California, in Texas, in any state across the country. Those agents are willing to teach you everything they know and all their secrets because you're not their direct competition. Yeah. So you can't steal their business. Whereas if we're in one little market center, those agents are going to teach you just enough to get by, but they're not going to teach you everything they know because then you're in direct competition with them. Mm-hmm. So the dynamic is completely different. And I feel like at Real, the fact that you can co-sponsor took a lot of the competitiveness out. I think EXP added that at some point, but it was becoming super competitive even within the company, between different downlines. So if somebody met you and I at the same time, they had to choose who they wanted to go under, where at Real, they could just co-sponsor us and we could all work together. So it was a lot more collaborative. Yeah,
and sponsors have different value.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, for instance, Chris knows you. So Grace and I just brought on an agent, Chris DeKanchik, and he's originally from New York, firefighter.
We worked at Keller Williams. I know him from like 10 years ago. So yeah, we were in a similar market. We were not far away from each other. And then he moved down here. He was switching from Keller Williams, and he was nervous about switching from a brick and mortar structure to a virtual brokerage. It was a big concern of his for years. So I was like, you know what, let me give him a local plug-in, find somebody in the same area as him that's going to work with him, handholds, be in person, and re-motivate somebody to try different things and be more innovative with their business, because as entrepreneurs, we have ups and downs and we get bored and we get frustrated, and that's natural. That happens over time, and sometimes it's just the people you surround yourself with.
Yeah, and he gets sort of a brick and mortar feel here, but still gets the relationship and the sponsorship from you and me. So him and I get to work together physically almost every day. And yeah, so the co-sponsorship is a really cool thing to have, I think. You can partner with somebody who has a couple 100,000 followers on Instagram under Real Broker because you just want that influence to be a part of your brand, and then somebody local who can help you navigate that local geographical region. So like it lowers the barrier to entry, I think, for a lot of agents to come in. And you touched on something earlier about EXP, another very popular cloud brokerage. I think they just hit like 85,000 agents and we have about 25,000.
Yep.
The monthly fee, so a mentor fee, a monthly fee, it just like there was so many things that prevented the agents from getting off the ground, brand new agents from getting off the ground. Yeah. And Real Broker, they want you to take off quickly. So your cap is lower. There's no monthly fee or payment. You have an incredible network of people.
Yeah, and even just to add on to your point, the trainings. So that's something that's a huge concern for new agents. They're like, but who's going to train me if I'm not in an in-person office? We have Real Academy, and EXP had something similar too. They had trainings that were hosted, but Real Academy, I feel like, is so unique and it's structured so differently, where it's categorized, all the trainings. There's a beginner level. So if you're a new agent, you know exactly where to go and what trainings to watch. Then there's intermediate, there's advanced. So it makes it so easy for any agent at any level to know exactly where to go to get the training that they need. It's so specific. And there's like courses in there that you can go through. Like you could go through a social media course. You could go through a TikTok course. You can stuff that's not offered at these traditional brokerages because they're just focused on a cold calling and door knocking. And listen, those things work, but it's not the only option. And social media is free marketing. So a lot of agents now, they're like, how do I figure out how to do this? And what's the most innovative company that's going to help me get there?
So you touched on social media, and everything now, again, is in the cloud or on your phone. So how do you tap into your social network to bring you business?
So I actually get 80 to 100% of my leads every year. All of my closings really come from my Instagram account. So the other 20% is usually just past clients or referrals. Everything else is super organic. So It just was a huge opportunity that I got made fun of in the beginning. People were like, when are you going to stop making videos and go sell a house? But meanwhile, I didn't have a single closing for my first 6 months. After that, I had 3 closings in one day, and I sold 10 million my first year. So all of that came from Instagram. It all came from my sphere of influence and just nurturing them through social media and teaching them new things. And I just figured out what worked and what my audience wanted to see, and I just kept offering free value. Like I offer homebuyer tips and ways to negotiate to get your offer accepted, and how seller's concessions save you more money than getting a reduction on the purchase price. Like things that normal people that are not realtors don't know or don't know how to do. And it made them trust me to work on that transaction with them because they knew that I knew a lot more than they did and I had experience with it. And it's your digital resume and it's free marketing. So if you're door knocking, cold calling, if you think about it, yes, it works, if you do it enough, but the time that you invest there's no return on investment, right? Like you can knock on a door, you're knocking on one door at a time. So how many could you possibly do in one day? Even if you do 20, if I make one post, that reel gets seen by a lot of them get like 1 million views on it. How long would it take you to knock on 1 million doors or call 1 million people? Your entire life, If you think of it that way, it just wouldn't make sense to do anything else, in my opinion.
Yeah, even these newer agents who don't have a following and are freaked out by social media, you're going to get like 300 views.
Right.
That's so 300 doors.
I was giving you a grander scale of views, but yes. So even for somebody, and I had about 7,000 followers. I was stuck at that number for a long time. And I still was getting 80 to 100% of my business. So it's not just necessarily the number of followers you have. It's the way that you communicate to them and show them why you're qualified to do the job that you're doing.
Yeah, you mentioned free value or just giving advice, giving things away. And I think you magnetize, by doing that, you magnetize people towards you. And being authentic too. It's tough to do that on video. And
that's what most people are missing.
Yeah, authenticity is a legit magnet.
Well, because if everybody's posting the same homebuyer tips and they're posting, I sold this house, what's the difference between you and I? There is no difference.
Nothing.
So why would they want to work with, they're just going to work for whoever it came to them the most easiest, or it's just right in front of their face, or whatever the case is. Like people reach out to me, go out of their way to reach out to me because they want to work with me, because they resonate with something that I posted, because there were vulnerable posts in addition to the value that was being offered.
Exactly. And that's why video marketing is becoming so popular, is because they just want to see you. They want to see how you move, how you sound. Like, do you sound authentic? Can you put together a sentence? You can form a lot of trust from just watching somebody on video and how they interact with other people, and also just kind of how they communicate in general. So it's some powerful stuff, but that kind of goes along with what we're talking about with Real and the cloud virtual brokerage. Is everything now, trust and relationships are formed online.
Yeah.
Online maybe is like a dinosaur term. So it's really cool. My experience with Real brokerage so far is that the culture, like, look, you live in Florida and you're here right now in Charleston in my studio. The support and the network in Real Broker is very different than EXP. I didn't know anybody in EXP in Charleston. And now I know a ton of Real Broker agents here in Charleston and beyond. So it's just a really cool vibe. And maybe, I don't know if you want to speak on the culture in Real.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's so different for whatever reason, because again, they are so similar, the companies. I had the same experience that you did. So I'm sure other agents have as well. But I met my best friends through the company. Like, one of my friends is in Washington, D.C. Like, we're such good friends now, met through Real, through Instagram. Like, there was just such collaboration, and, we're in separate organizations, but that didn't cause any type of friction or competition or anything like that. Like, we plan events together, and it's so different. And I've made such incredible connections with people over the last, I've only been there for 8-9 months now. And it's been really incredible. I've met so many amazing people through it.
So let's get a little deeper on Real Broker and what they offer from a value perspective. Something that I've seen is how Reason is the
online platform, dashboard, app.
Logging into it is amazing. Everything is on the left-hand side of the screen. Every last bit of anything that you could possibly need from a real estate perspective, from a broker perspective. Real signature. So your signature software, your wallet, your transactions, you can contact brokers from there. In EXP, again, EXP is a great broker, but there was about 17 logins, I feel like.
There was. And EXP had good technology.
They did.
Compared to Keller Williams, I felt like, and not to draw direct comparisons, but that's just my experience. But virtual brokerages, they have to have better technology, right? Because everybody's working online. They don't have an option. They have to be 10 steps ahead. So there really is no comparison. But EXP, I agree. The onboarding process was really frustrating because you needed 10 separate logins and you didn't know where to find anything, and everything was a different website. Here, they took all of the best technology and a lot of the similar, platforms that EXP had, but they combined it all and condensed it and made one app. So it's just so easy. You could figure out how to use it in 10 minutes. And everything, like you were saying, from transactions to your wallet, you could have a debit card with the company. So not only is that your debit card to access funds that haven't cleared yet from, closing checks, but also your stock and your revenue share. So it's kind of like taking a cash advance from yourself. You're borrowing from your own money, and it's immediate. So as soon as something closes and you upload your documents, you can access those funds. There's no waiting period for anything.
Yeah, it really is a cool platform to use. It makes it very simple.
So just out of curiosity, what was your trigger point that made you explore other brokerage options and want to leave EXP and go to Real?
That's a good question. Number one, we talked about that a lot of the support was segregated with different logins for different things where it could have been more streamlined. There could have been a whole lot of improvements. And for me as a systems guy, coming from project management and corporate leadership, I felt like there was a lot of ways it could have been improved. Enter Real Broker, and looking at the back end systems that they had, I knew that I could scale a team better that way. I knew that I'd have a better user experience, and that I knew my team, anybody I brought in, I could sell that to because I believed in it. I did not feel comfortable with the systems that EXP had scaling a team.
And just to touch on that, I had a very different agent attraction experience at EXP versus Real. I had probably 16 or so people in my organization over the 3 years, and it was getting difficult to attract agents. And I'm not somebody that's super focused on recruiting agents, but it just happens naturally over time. There were people that, had asked about it, but weren't really pulling the trigger anymore. And you could just see a decline in the amount of people that were joining. And I didn't understand why. And I had somebody that was like, listen, he was about to join EXP and he was like, I'm going to Real. And I was like, so am I. And we kind of just went at the same time. And it's so different. It's the attraction is so much more organic, where I feel like it's easier to close people because they see, we show them the dashboard. They're like, wait a second, this is 10 times easier than anything I've used at any brokerage. And we show them the fact that there's no monthly fee. They're not paying the broker anything until they close a deal. So it's not costing them anything to hang their license. The splits are so low. The cap is so low. And honestly, in my opinion, it's the only company that offers the lowest splits and cap for the most amount of support and training and resources. You can't compare it to anything else. Like, it just was like a hands down no-brainer for most of the agents I spoke to. So at EXP, I had about 16 people in 3 years. Now I have 40 people in the last 7-8 months.
Yeah, you're selling it, but obviously the brokerages as well. They want to follow you.
Yeah.
But if there's a lower barrier to entry from a onboarding and change management perspective.
Yeah.
Which is a good segue into, okay, Real Broker is an obvious choice for an agent who wants to up level, period. It just is. I've done the research, and you have as well. And my team is already scaling and production's already scaling. Okay, so that's a check in the box right there.
Yep.
Now, a lot of what agents have as their biggest concern next would be, what's the onboarding process and how is that going to change my mind about Real Broker? Or is it going to be easy? So I can just say that it was easy for me. It was easy for my team. Again, it goes back to the culture, your sponsor, if you have co-sponsors, helping you along with the process. I've emailed random onboarding specialists at Real Broker, and they've responded quickly, gotten on Zooms with me. Like they just send me a Zoom video, be like, can you hop on right now? And
there's
like,
so many different support teams, and it's so easy to contact whoever you need. The Leo chatbot, so it's an AI chatbot on the app. If you don't know who to contact for something, you just ask it. You're like, hey, who should I email to onboard a new agent to my team? And they're like, oh, email onboarding@realbrokerage.com.
Yeah.
Answer immediately.
So what's Leo? Because Leo is another, we didn't talk about that, and I think we should definitely hit that before we wrap. What is Leo? And to somebody who has no clue about Real Broker and maybe hasn't even touched ChatGPT or any kind of AI platform.
Yeah, so there's an AI tool that they named Leo that is in the app. So it's just a little pop-up that comes up. You can ask it anything. So you can ask it questions like, what's my New York license number and when does it expire? That's information I never know, right? Like nobody knows their license number when it expires. It tells me if I just ask it. If I need to know how to contact the broker, if I need to know what my GCI was last year, if I need to know how many deals we have pending, like you can ask it any stats about you or your business. You can ask it anything about the company itself, contact points, or points of contact for anything you need within the company. You can ask it about what does Real Wallet do? Like if you have questions about anything within the app, you can ask it that. You could pretty much ask it anything, and it gets smarter every time. So it's absorbing all of this information and the frequently asked questions from agents, and it's using that to increase its wisdom and the ability to answer these questions. So it's something that's progressive, and it is growing, and it's getting smarter, but it has been so helpful so far.
It's endless what Leo can do and what it's going to be doing, because I think the next version's coming out pretty soon. When you say app, there's the Reason app, which houses all of that capability that we talked about. And then there's obviously the online dashboard, which is the same thing. So if you're a phone guy, you can literally write a contract on your phone. If you want to get on the web, it's the same exact thing. Yep. It's a little easier on the web for obvious reasons. You have a little bigger of a screen.
Yeah, it's just an expanded version of it.
It's just an expanded version of it, but it's got all the same capabilities. So it's just a really cool place to, it's like your home base, right?
Yep.
And Leo's a great part of that. And sometimes you can go in there and even with all of the 15 icons on the left, which again, brings everything into one portal. When you log in the morning, you're like, yes, everything's right here. But also you have Leo if you don't know where the heck to go.
Yeah.
So that helps you.
And then I think also something that we should go over quickly is the stock and revenue share, because so at Keller Williams, I feel like they might have been the pioneers of this, where they had profit sharing. I don't know if other companies were doing it or if they were the first or what that situation is. But the difference is profit sharing is the agents are getting a profit of what the company is profiting at the end of the year, which is nothing because they don't want to pay taxes, right? Like we're businesses, we're writing off, like companies aren't showing a ton of profit at the end of the year. So the amount that was getting paid out to the agents for agent attraction was a very minor amount of money. And at EXP was drastically different. Like we were seeing, thousands of dollars a month in revenue share if you had 50 agents, 100 agents. Like there are agents that are making millions of dollars a year on revenue share. Drastic difference because you're getting a percentage back of each agent under you on a direct deposit passive income basis. And then Real did it to the point where it's higher. So I'm seeing like double what I was seeing, not just because of the number of agents, but if I focus just on like when I had 16, it was paying out a lot more than it was at EXP. And that's something that's incredible too, because we're also not limited to agent attraction for the states that we're licensed in. You know, like I had an agent just join me from Michigan. I have one in California. I have one in Georgia just joined. So people that I know at brick and mortar offices, they're like, how are you attracting all these agents? I'm like, well, because they're from all across the country. There's like an unlimited number of agents. Like it just allows you to grow exponentially. And the stock too, I mean, the stock at EXP, the issue I was having is that I joined about 3 years ago, and the stock is pretty steady the way it was 3 years ago. It wasn't really, it kind of peaked and it plateaued. So at Real, because, you know, we just hit 25,000 agents and it's newer, to me, it's like joining EXP 10 years ago, you know, getting in on the incline, where that's where I felt like I missed the boat. I felt like I joined late and missed out on a lot of financial benefits because of it. The trajectory it's going, like I think it tripled over the last year and a half, the stock at Real. So to get in earlier and watch the growth and be a part of it from the beginning is incredible, but also financially it's a lot more beneficial to be able to grow with your stock and your revenue share. And the company gives you stock for a multitude of things. I think every time you cap every year, they give you stock for that. You can also join an equity program where you can buy it at a discount. So there's just a ton of options, and it's a long-term plan and kind of savings goal. To me, it's like the equivalent of a company matching your 401k. Like they're contributing to your future and your retirement. And the best part about it is that you can put a beneficiary. So if you have a child, they don't have to be licensed. Like I remember at EXP, they had to get their real estate license, which obviously you have to be 18 years old. And they had to hold that license active in order to get that passed down to them. At Real, it could be anybody. They don't need a real estate license. So if you have a kid, you can make them the beneficiary. I already did that. I have a 7-year-old. So it just gives you some security.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm glad you touched on that because those are big points. Yeah, we're about a quarter of the size of EXP now. EXP agents are coming over to Real Broker.
And big teams too.
In big sizes and quickly. And there's a big opportunity right now to get in on the ground floor and to reap the benefits of all of the overhead that Real Broker is not spending on brick and mortar, not spending on the business, but giving back to the agents. From when you cap that money that you're paying on your split, most of that is going back to the agents. That's the coolest part. That's why this digital brokerage thing is blowing up. So it's a really good opportunity to get into Real. I appreciate you coming out here and chatting with me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we get to co-sponsor somebody and then see how he grows in the company and see how he brings other folks in and grows our family tree, we'll call it.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. I feel like there's so many big technology shifts happening and just so many amazing ways to benefit not only us as the agents and our back-end systems and the agents we bring on, but also for our sellers and buyers.
Excellent. Well, Grace Folias with Modern Approach.
The Modern Approach team at Real Broker, and you can find me on Instagram. It's just grace.folias.
Sweet. We'll drop all your stuff in the description, but it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you coming out.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.